Oh, hey, hi, how you doing? It's good to see you again. I'm glad you came by because I was remembering that story you told me. It was such a wonderful story. Make sure I have it straight. So what happened was you're sitting at work, you're at your desk working away, and you get a phone call. You pick it up, and it's the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer. The officer says, listen, I want you to have lunch. We're having lunch with the Vice President of Data Processing. Okay, sure. You want to take me to lunch? Sure, let's do lunch. Okay, so you go out to lunch. It's this beautiful place. They got a deck out there. You're outside. Beautiful view. They got all the nice napkins, cloth napkins. I mean, you don't usually get taken out to lunch like this. So you're thinking something's up. And sure enough, you're eating your soup, and the Chief Financial Officer says, listen, the reason we're bringing you to lunch is I have a problem, I have a question, maybe you can help me out. Okay, sure. You're kind of used to this by now, right? Yeah, sure. What seems to be the problem? Well, Harry here, who's the vice president of data processing, is having a little problem. He came to me, and I'm coming to you. As you know, we have all these protocols because of COVID-19, and the president's all in charge. He's got to do these protocols, keep the employees safe, do our job. Sure, okay, yeah, okay, I agree with that. We'll all agree with that. Yeah, but Harry here has got like about a half a dozen people. He's got a cabal. They brought to him this newspaper article out of Boston, and it says that in this hospital, a third of the people in the hospital did not have the COVID test. Or no, excuse me, a third of them had the COVID test, got the shots, got the vaccinations, and they're looking at it and saying, well, what are we going to all this trouble for? Look at a third of the people already who had COVID, already are in the hospital. We don't know how to respond to them. We don't want to just drop the hammer and say, blah, 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 you got to do all this stuff. We would like to have their voluntary compliance. We want them to be on board. But headlines like this don't look right. Is there something wrong with the data? Can you take a look at the data? So, you said, okay, all right. I think I see what your point is. You said, okay, I see what your point is. And I understand it. Listen, I think I can help you out here. But can I have a favor from you as the Chief Financial Officer? Well, what's that? Well, you said, it's bonus time coming up, and I know the salespeople always get all the biggest bonuses. Big bonuses goes out to the sales staff. Not so much. And there's no bonuses to the accounting and finance staff. The people down on the lower level, the junior accountants and the clerks, the accounting clerks and the payroll people, payroll clerks. They need some loving too. They need to show that the company appreciates them. So this year, you think maybe you could throw a few dollars for the bonus, give these people a couple $100, and they could feel appreciated. So the CFO says, well, maybe we could work something out. But what do you think you can do about this problem? And so you said, well, I understand this article that you're talking about. It's this article right here. It says 1/3 of hospitalized COVID-19 patients in Massachusetts are vaccinated. And it's dated December 10th, 2021, and it comes from the State House News Service, reported by 7 News Boston. Okay, well, I don't really need to look at all the underlying data because someone has already addressed this. Someone's already taken a look at this. Well, who is that? What do you mean somebody's already looked at this? Yes. Somebody's already looked at this. Basically, John Allen Paulos. He's a mathematician at Temple University. And he's actually written several books for the layman, people who are interested in math but aren't, students. He's written several books, and he published an article on this exact subject on a publication called Three Quarks Daily. Okay, well, is this complicated? No, actually, it's not very complicated. Let me walk you through, let me walk you through what John did. Okay, what did John do? He says, basically, you got to consider this. Instead of getting all kinds of stats, let's look at a metaphor. He looked at a metaphor, and he said, you have a large pan, and this big, large pan is filled with 500 cherries. Okay? Now, cherries can go bad, so they spray it with a preservative. They spray it with the preservative, and 3 of the cherries do spoil. And they take those 3 cherries and they put them into this cauldron off to the side. Now, 497 of them are good, but the 3 that spoiled you put off to the side into this cauldron. Okay, now we got a smaller container of grapes. There's only 50 grapes here. It's a smaller container. And they don't spray them, right? They no preservative. And so of those, 7 of those grapes go bad. Okay? Now, 43 were okay, but 7 went bad. So they take those 7 and they put them in the cauldron because those are the bad grapes. Now, you look in the cauldron, you got 7 and 3, you got 10. And 30% were sprayed. So you look at it and you say, well, heck, 3 out of 10 were sprayed, and you know, what's the big deal? Why do we need to be sprayed? It's a metaphor for the COVID, right? But you got to look at the underlying data. You're looking at the remainder. Let's look at the computation. So of the cherries, 3 spoiled out of a total of 500. That's a spoilage rate of 0.006. That's 0.6%. For the grapes that, you know, were not sprayed, 7 of them spoiled. 7 out of the 50. That's 0.14. That's 14%. Now, we can see that, you know, 14% is multiple effects from 0.6%. Clearly, the effects of spraying the grapes, the cherries in this case, was significant. But if you just look at the remainders, it tells a different story. You got to see what you're looking at, right? So, the president and the vice president were, the CFO and the vice president were very pleased. So, you know, I said, well, that's an interesting story. So how did it end up? How did it work out? And so you told me, well, actually, it worked out very well. They presented this information to this cabal of people at the data processing department. And you know what? These are smart people. They're intelligent people. They saw what was being told about the, you know, the analogy with the cherries. And they said, yeah, okay, we get it now. We get it. We're not going to argue. We're going to follow the protocols that the president, you know, has outlined. We're all on board. We're big supporters now. And I was like, well, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's good. Is there any more to the story? And you told me, actually, yeah, there's more to the story. Actually, the CFO was happy about your presentation and how it turned out with the data processing, and we had to get in any trouble, and have to drop the hammer on threatened kind of people, kind of thing. And so there were bonuses paid to people in the accounting and finance department, and you know, they were quite pleased. You know, several people, a lot of people got some small bonuses, and they were quite pleased that they you know, feel appreciated. And I said, well, you know, what about you? Well, you got a little bonus also at year end. And I said, you know what? That's great. That is why you are one ace accountant. And I think you should get a round of applause. All right. All right, goodbye.